Hello, welcome to our webinar on benchmarking water and sewer rates and the 2014 Alabama Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard, presented by the Environmental Finance Center at UNC-Chapel Hill. I'm Lexi Kay, the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator for the EFC. I have just a few technical details for you before we get started. All participants will be muted, so if you have any questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen. Hopefully you had a chance to look over the previous slide, or this slide here, explaining some logistics about using GoToWebinar, but if at any point you have any technical questions, please type them in the question box and we will do our best to help you. The questions box is fairly small, so if you want to detach the box and make it larger, you can do so by clicking on the curvy arrow button in the upper right corner of the questions box. The Raise Your Hand function of GoToWebinar will be disabled for this webinar. Again, please type your questions into the questions box. And when asking a question, state your name and water system name. This will help us respond to you. This webinar will last for 1 hour and we'll have some time for questions both during and at the end of the webinar. Once the webinar ends, you will automatically be emailed a link to a very brief survey. Your feedback is extremely important to us and we'll use it to help us better our future webinars. And thank you very much for filling it out. We may not have time to answer all of your questions. If not, I will select out a subset to put to David to answer. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, we'll follow up with you afterwards. This webinar is being recorded and we'll share the slides from the presentation and the recording with you within the next week. So David and I are both from the Environmental Finance Center at UNC-Chapel Hill, and our mission is to enhance the ability of governments and other organizations to provide environmental programs and services in fair, effective, and financially sustainable ways. And we do that through applied research, teaching and outreach, and program design and evaluation. This webinar is being sponsored by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. We are grateful to Mr. Aubrey White, Ms. Samantha Sims, Mr. Dennis Harrison, and others at ADEM for their active support and funding of this project. Funding for this project was provided by ADEM's State Revolving Fund. For more information, please contact James Daly, whose contact information is on screen. The webinar is an outgrowth of the 2014 Drinking Water and Wastewater Rate Survey of Alabama Utilities conducted by ADEM, who collected the rate sheets and audited annual financial reports, and the EFC, who entered the data into a database, and the online interactive dashboard tool developed from the survey data by the EFC. While ADEM sponsored the survey work, the dashboard itself was sponsored through the ongoing Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, which is funded by a grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. More on that nationwide 18-month project in a little bit. This webinar is part of a series of free webinars on financial management topics for water and wastewater utilities in Alabama. Each webinar is being offered twice to accommodate your schedules, and we have the list of webinars coming up here on screen, and you can see that our next webinar will take place on August 26th and 28th on the affordability of water and sewer rates and the affordability assessment tool. You can earn 1 CEH credit per webinar that you attend, so that's 1 per topic area, for a total of up to 4 CEH credits. We will track your attendance and email you certificates of attendance at the end of the series. For more information and to register, please visit our website through the link you see on screen. And now I'm going to turn it over to David Tucker, our project director, who's going to tell you more about the affordability webinar that's coming up, and then he'll jump right into our benchmarking material.
Thanks very much, Lexi. It's great to be here with all of you today through the magic of the phone and the internet, and very excited to get to tell you about today's webinar, but also the ones coming up next week. Next Tuesday and Thursday, August 26th and 28th, I think we're really going to have something very interesting. We encourage all of you to attend about our new affordability assessment tool. It's our newest tool. It should be on our website later today, actually. If you have an interest in the affordability of the rates that you charge for water and or sewer for your customers, this is a tool that you can only take a few minutes to enter data in for your typical or average bills and a little bit of socioeconomic data. And if you don't have that data available, our tool points you to where to get it for free from the Census Bureau's website. And then it shows you how to look at affordability of rates, not just in terms of one metric, like the percentage of median household income metric you're going to see on our dashboard in a moment, but in terms of a variety of metrics, also looking at customers who are under the poverty line or customers who are on SNAP assistance and so on. It will also give you the ability to look at segments of your customer base, not just your entire customer base all at once, but say the poorest segment of your customer base. And I think it's going to be some great content there that I and my colleague Stacy Barraza are going to be leading next week, so please tune in for that. As Lexi mentioned a moment ago, we have a really exciting project that we are just beginning now across 18 months. It is a second round of the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. This is the project that paid for the dashboard itself that you're about to see. And we are going to be working all around the country, including in Alabama, to give on-the-ground workshops, webinars on various topics like rates and financial management, energy management, water loss, asset management, leadership, and so on. And we will provide in-depth direct technical assistance for a number of systems for up to 20 hours. All of this funded by the EPA comes at no charge to you and your system. If you're interested in talking to us, since this project began already last month, if you're interested in talking to us about some direct technical assistance in one or more areas of the grant, you can click on that link that you see on the screen there. You can contact one of us from the EFC directly. And again, these slides will be posted on our website afterwards within the week. The objectives of today's webinar are to become familiar with how the Alabama Water and Wastewater Rates dashboard works. It's our first time doing a dashboard for Alabama. We're very excited about that. It's got a lot of great features I'm going to show you today. This can also help you to compare your water systems and or sewer systems rates with those of other systems around the state of Alabama or within given comparison groups, as you'll see. And you'll learn how to apply some useful financial benchmarks to your system that we were able to gather from financial reports that ADEM collected. But before we talk more about the survey and the dashboard, Lexi is going to launch the first polling question now to help wake everybody up, warm everybody up here this afternoon. And Lexi, what's that question?
Our first question is, what kind of water and or sewer utility do you represent?
And if you guys wouldn't mind taking a moment to, if you are a system, click on the answer for that. It'll help me to know more who is in the virtual room, if you will, here with us today. And Lexi, are the responses rolling in?
I just need a couple more seconds. We're coming in here.
Very good.
All right, I'm going to...
And Lexi's going to put those results up on the screen now where all of you can see them. And it looks like about 2/3 of you are municipal systems, as well as some not-for-profits and some folks here who are from other kinds of organizations like consultants or state agencies. Thank you for that, Lexi. And we've got another polling question, equally quick and painless for you now. And Lexi, what is that question?
What size water and or sewer system does your utility operate? So by the number of people served.
And that is also going to be very interesting to know about who's here today. We are here today to help systems of all sizes, as distinguished from the small systems project that I just mentioned a moment ago, which works with utilities that have 10,000 or fewer people served.
All right, we've got our responses in.
Very good, and it looks like we have about 1/3 of the systems of the larger sizes, about 1/3 medium, and a nice distribution of sizes here. So thanks very much for voting, everybody. Appreciate that. We try to make this a little bit interactive. And as Lexi said earlier, if you have questions at any time about the dashboard, about today's webinar, about next week's webinars, any of that, please go ahead and type that in, and we'll try and answer all the questions we can on the air. Lexi, at my request, put together this, I think, great slide of some straight from the recent headline stories about water and the availability and the affordability of water around the country, from the drought in California to the difficulties with water bills in Detroit, to problems with water in Toledo. It's clearly in the headlines a lot, and we think that our tools like the dashboard, like the affordability tool, like the rates tool you'll see next month, and the CIP, capital improvement plan tool, will also be very helpful to you. We really appreciate the partnership with the Alabama Department of Environmental Management on this project. ADEM used their own staff very generously of their own time to collect the rate sheets and the financial reports, and then funded us to input that data and run quality control on that data to do today's webinar, this whole series of webinars, and to produce the final report and the rates tables, which I'll give you a look at in just a moment. And we're very pleased that 451 utilities are included in this survey, water and or sewer utilities. Those include municipalities, not-for-profits, authorities, county districts, and for-profit companies. We also have a few graphs that I've put together based upon the results of the survey that I want to show you before we launch into the dashboard itself. For a little more background, if you look at a monthly drinking water bill for 5,000 gallons of drinking water, based upon the survey, we're seeing that if you are one of the larger utilities serving 10,000 or more people, that bill is going to be a little lower than is typical for the three smaller categories. It is interesting, the fewer than 1,000 is a little lower than the next category up, but we should point out this is not necessarily showing what the bills should be for approaching a full cost accounting, fully recovering the costs of running the system through your rates, but this is showing where the bills currently are. And there we go. Similarly, for wastewater bills, we see a somewhat different trend where the average bill, as the utility system size grows larger, the bill gets a bit larger. This is based on a smaller sample, about a quarter as many utilities as we just saw a moment ago with the water utilities. So this may be a less representative sample. At the same time, it is interesting to see this different trend here. If you look at the drinking water utilities based upon their ownership type, similar to those of you who are here in the webinar with us today, we have more municipalities than anything else, but a mix of others, also a fair number of not-for-profits and authorities, and a smattering of the other categories. And if you look at the drinking water rates by the kind of rate structure that is used, a uniform rate where it's $5 per 1,000 gallons, no matter how many or how few gallons, versus a decreasing block where that incremental charge will get lower at certain breakpoints. Those are the two main categories we see currently being used by drinking water utilities in Alabama, not so many doing increasing block or others at present. And if you put those all together, we see that pretty much across all of the different ownership types, it's mainly those two kinds of rate structures being used currently, uniform rates and decreasing block rates. For wastewater utilities, we see, again, municipalities, the largest category, over half. Not-for-profits, still the second largest category. Not nearly as many authorities in the sewer space, but there are a few of those. And in the wastewater rates for Alabama, in terms of the kind of rate structure, we're seeing an even larger percentage of uniform rates than was the case with drinking water. Still quite a few decreasing block, as well as some uniform rates with a cap. The charges are capped off at a certain consumption point. Putting those together, even though they're smaller categories for the authorities and the districts, and we're only talking about 20 utilities there altogether, but it is interesting to see that for them, we do see more of the other kinds of rate structures being used than just the uniform rates and a bit of decreasing block rates. There's, for the authorities, a fair amount of flat fee, for example. A bill for a customer is typically going to be composed largely of a base charge and then a variable rate or volumetric rate. Looking at the base charges for the Alabama water and wastewater utilities, we see that the single most common one, breaking them down into categories of $5 range, is the $15 to $20 a month category for the water. The larger category is a little bit lower for the base charges for the wastewater utilities, where we see pretty much of a tie between 0 to 10 as well as $10 to $15 per month. Putting all of that together, we see that the two numbers that jump out to me for the largest groupings of utilities are that for the authorities, the average bill at 5,000 gallons a month, both for water and for sewer, is a bit higher, appreciably higher than the municipalities and the not-for-profits. And that's probably not surprising, because those regional authorities may be stretched across a larger area, a less populated area, and still have to finance all of their capital stock across that coverage area. This graph illustrates the trend that as moving from left to right, the monthly consumption increases from 0,000 gallons per month, or 0 I should say, to 15,000 gallons per month. That light blue area gets bigger. The range of bills you see gets larger. That dark blue line in the middle is the median. So 50% of the utility bills fall above and 50% below that line. And this chart illustrates that as you are looking at marginal prices, so in this case, if you were going from 10,000 gallons per month of usage and decrease that down to 5,000 gallons per month of usage, what kind of marginal price decrease are you seeing there, both in terms of dollars on the x-axis and a percentage drop on the y-axis for the different kinds of rate structures? And one of the trends that's clear here is that if you're an increasing block rate structure, that drop-off on percentage basis is going to happen faster. Not as fast if you are one of the red or the blues here for the uniform rates and the decreasing block rates. In this graph, a little bit different approach. We've got the water bills on the bottom on the x-axis, the sewer bills on the left on the y-axis, and it shows us that same kind of drop from 10 to 5,000 gallons per month. It's going to happen a little faster for the water bills. That percentage drop will be noticeable there a little faster. Here the guys along the x-axis, that's bound to be the sewer utilities are using flat rates. So I know that you're here to see the dashboard. Hopefully you've been hearing good things about it, and we're going to put it up on the screen in just a moment. You can access it by going to our website here at efc.sog.unc.edu and search for Alabama. There's also a link to it on ADEM's website, I believe on the page for the State Revolving Fund. Everyone does, of course, need safe drinking water, even the cute animals like you see in the picture here. But we have another poll question to make sure you're still with me here and awake and paying attention. And Lexi, what is that question we're about to launch on folks' screens?
You should be seeing it now. What utility management and finance topics are you most concerned about?
And of course, that is something that we are very interested in. So if you can take a moment to click your answers there. We do want to know what is most important to you, what you're paying the most attention to. What is, as it were, the greatest area of pain that you're facing there. Though we hope you're not facing any pain today. What have we got here, Lexi?
Let's see here.
Okay, well, we see a lot of folks, we let you vote on more than one, which is good. A lot of folks saying affordability and cost recovery and rate setting and communicating rates. Well, you're going to get to see some things that relate to all of that on our dashboard in just a moment here. As far as the dashboard goes, we've been doing them for some years now. North Carolina and Georgia hire us to do a rate survey and make the dashboards, but we did surveys before that too, before we made dashboards. And to illustrate what is perhaps not as good as the approach you're about to see through the dashboard, this is an actual news release from a municipal utility in a state not to be named. It's not your own state of Alabama, I can say that. Where they are basically trumpeting the fact that they have the third lowest water and sewer rates statewide. Now, everybody likes lower bills. I do when I pay for my water and electricity rather than higher bills. But this really just doesn't tap into much analysis, does it? It doesn't have anything to do with affordability of rates. It doesn't have anything to do with our costs being recovered. Is the capital stock being maintained? And that is a real concern. It is possible to pick one consumption point, let's say 5,000 gallons a month, and do a table here or a bar graph and just line everybody up together. That may be better than what we just saw, but it still provides a pretty limited context and a limited ability to do analysis. It's better to have a more robust sample selection and to have different kinds of samples you can manipulate with the tool. It's better to have more than one bill amount, and it's better to look not just at keeping rates low, but at these other important considerations too. We did used to publish, and we still do, big old tables here, like 185 pages of them we've done for North Carolina. Of course, as you pour through them, you might end up looking like this poor guy right here because it's not presented very concisely. So we've been doing rates dashboards for various states. In addition to Alabama, we've done them for Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. They are free tools. They're online. They're available to all of you who are on the call and members of the public to use. They compare rates against different characteristics, whether they're geographic or socioeconomic, allowing you to do different comparison groups like within 50 miles distance or similar service population, same type of utility or rate structure, and so on. And now we're actually going to take you to the Alabama dashboard finally. And thanks for bearing with me to get to this point. I'm trying to maximize it on my screen here and it is not cooperating, but hopefully you can all see it pretty clearly here. So, Lexi, before I plunge into this, do we have any questions that people have typed in yet?
No questions yet, but we encourage you to submit those questions and we'll get to them.
Yeah, please do speak up. And also I should say that I'm going to be putting some example utilities up here on the dashboard to help me illustrate how it works and to bring out different points and characteristics. So I'd love to have some volunteers. If you're a system and you're on the call and you'd like some instant analysis or explanation of what you're seeing on the screen, please type in the name of your system and who you are, and let Lexi know, and then she'll relay that to me just a little bit later. So for the Alabama Water and Wastewater Rates dashboard, we actually collect in our database data about residential rates, commercial rates for water and sewer, for inside and outside corporate limits, as well as for residential irrigation. The dashboard currently visualizes just the residential water and sewer inside rates, if there's a difference. But we do have some of that other analysis in some of the other tools. And just to show you a quick glimpse at them, we've prepared this final report or summary report for ADEM. It's got information about the rate structures, the base charges, the variable rates, the residential bills, the commercial bills, inside versus outside rates, affordability, full cost pricing, all of that. We've got some great analysis and graphs and tables in here So that's available on our website on the same page as the dashboard is for Alabama. We encourage you to take a look at that and let us know what you think about it. We do still do the rate tables like I was talking about a moment ago. You can see a listing of all of the utilities and a little bit of description about those utilities, in addition to which you can, let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all so it's a little easier to see there. So what kind of rate structure there is, information about the block rates, and then also you can get to the sections on the bills at different consumption amounts here. So that's for residential and commercial bills, among other things. Back to the dashboard now. I had Helen I was looking at before we started on air here, but what you're going to first see when you come in to the dashboard is this right here, just some instructions saying, hey, please go up top here, select a utility, and then choose your services and your consumption amounts on the upper left side. So right here in the upper left, you can choose the water bill, sewer bill, combined water and sewer bill. You can also vary the consumption amount from 0, which is essentially just looking at the base charge, isn't it, all the way up to 15,000 gallons per month. And that bill is illustrated here, right below the slider, and on the bill comparison dial. Also, because we hear there's this little sport that y'all play in Alabama just a little bit called football. So Aubrey White of ADAM asked us if we would do a mini survey of football ticket prices for all SEC schools and for all of their games. So it's not just Alabama and Auburn, the important schools, but it's everybody else in the SEC too. And so we've got that average price is $58.33. So this fictitious example utility at 5,000 gallons a month for the combined water and sewer bill, it's interesting to see that's only about $4 more a month for that combined water and sewer bill than the price of that ticket. So it just gives you something kind of intuitive to relate it to, hopefully. Before I go on to talking about the rest of the dashboard's capabilities, I do want to say that from the utility selector here, we've got all of the utilities in alphabetically by the rate structure label. But, maybe your utility didn't get a chance to respond to this survey. Fortunately, a lot of them did. We have well over 90%, I think, of the service population of the state for community water systems covered through this dashboard. But let's say you want to temporarily input yourself as a utility here. This won't be written to the database. So once you close down your session, all of this is going to be gone. But you can vary your consumption amount, say a bill at 4,000. You can input what your water bill would be. Let's say you have a sewer system too, what that would be. Your median household income, if you know that. Your system's operating revenues and the operating expenses, including depreciation expense. And then hit the compare button. And so here you can see still the bill comparison dial, cost recovery and affordability dial, not the conservation signal and none of the comparison groups, but it gives you some value right on the spot there. So we have that temporarily add your utility. Let's go back to seeing the full capabilities of the dashboard here with an example utility. So I mentioned the bill comparison dial. And this bill, water, 5,000 gallons per month, $26.18, falls within this middle 50%. That's what that dark green is. It's below the median of $33. Median, again, means 50% of the bills in the data sample are below that, 50% are above it. These yellow tails, if you will, at the bottom and the top, those are the bottom 10% and the top 10% of the bills. Another way of putting it, these guys are in the middle, but on the bottom of that middle range. The conservation signal dial, that's also looking at your peers, everyone else who is in the data sample that's selected. And this is looking at a higher level of water usage In this case, it's water, could be sewer or combined. A more discretionary level of usage that might not be so typical for an average household in an average month. That marginal price going from 10,000 to 11,000 gallons, how strong is the conservation signal, the pricing signal that the utility is sending? And we've broken it up into 4 colors, 4 quarters of the data. And this utility is sending a fairly weak pricing signal. They're not really using the price to tell the customer, you're kind of at a high level of consumption now, might want to cut back some. If you were in this dark green, it would be a strong signal because you'd be in that top quarter of the data. These bottom 2 dials, they're not looking at where the utility stands against all the other utilities in the data sample. They're looking at against a standard, if you will, for lack of a better term. So with affordability, for example, and I should point out these little question marks beside each dial, those are help boxes that give you some explanation about what the dial is and how it works. So those are always available for you when you don't have me around to be jawing at you about our dashboard. So as the affordability dial's help box indicates, we pull from the Census Bureau data from their 5-year American Community Survey for the median household income. There's a lot of ways to look at affordability. Speaking of which, come to our affordability webinars next week on Tuesday or Thursday. There's a lot of ways to enter into that discussion, but this is one way to start. And so we take a year of the bills for water or sewer, or water and sewer combined, and we see where do they fall in ranges that we have set here. These ranges are not, something that's based in stone or that people have said, this is the only right way to look at it. It's just if your combined water and sewer bill is above 2% of your MHI, it might be starting to get a bit unaffordable. If it's above 3%, might be getting pretty darn unaffordable for the typical customer. But different communities are going to be in different situations there. For the cost recovery dial, the 4th and final dial on this tab, cost recovery in this case is an operating ratio. For your enterprise fund for water and sewer, it's your operating revenues divided by your operating expenses, including depreciation and amortization expense. And here, if you're at 1, you'd be breaking even for your everyday bills plus some cost of depreciation. So it's good to be above 1. These folks, this imaginary utility at 1.1, they are between that, not bad point and an even better point, because all of the things being equal, you will have capital improvements coming in the future, sooner or later. How are you going to be able to afford them? There's more than one way to do it, but funding it out of rates is usually the kind of thing it ultimately comes back around to. Loans have to be paid off. Grants are hard to come by these days, and so on. So that's why we have that green range beginning at 1.2 there. We also have a financial benchmarks dial where we were able to gather some great financial data from the utilities financial reports that ADEM collected. In the lower left, it's the same dial you were just seeing, but above it you have operating ratio without depreciation. So it's straight up, can we pay for today's and tomorrow's bills? And in that case, it's good to be above 1.5, we think. Again, looking towards, can you fund your capital improvement plans for the future? If your utility has long-term capital indebtedness, we show a debt service coverage ratio dial here. Now, the help buttons here say more info on this tab, and they explain how we calculate it, the operating margin, revenues minus expenses, but without depreciation expense, over the sum of your principal and interest payments on your long-term debt. And by the way, of the utilities with long-term debt in fiscal year 2013, 2/3 had a ratio above 1, that's good, and about half had a ratio above 1.25, which is better. Especially if you're looking for additional funding in the future, it might be something that a lender would look at. And as far as measures of liquidity, there's more than one of those out there, but what we've chosen for here is days of cash on hand. If your utility, for some reason, due to drought or emergency, your revenues just stop coming in today, how long out of your cash and unrestricted cash and investments would you be able to pay bills for? And could you do it for 180 days or more, or a year or more? I'm going to pause here for a moment because I'm intuiting we might have a question or a comment. No, we don't. Okay. My intuition's not always correct. But I'm going to show you a bit more about how the dashboard works, and then we're going to throw up some examples on the screen there for you to look at. Again, please volunteer because, you know, we're not trying to put anyone on the spot, and that's not our intention at all, but we'd love to have some real live utilities who are on the call be able to show you what we've got here. I mentioned previously comparison groups. Essentially, we've programmed in the ability from a bunch of different data sources to be able to restrict what you look at, not just to all utilities, but just those that might be more like you in terms of what you're looking at for your rate setting decisions, what kinds of things may be important to you. So similar number of accounts. This example, utilities got 500 to 1,000, somewhere in that range. We're showing on the map now just 77 rate structures. I'm going to switch to a different example utility, by the way, to low rates and low operating revenue. You can see they've got pretty scary kind of operating ratio right there. They're only taking in about 54 cents for every dollar they need to pay for operations plus depreciation from their rates. There's also similar revenue generation. In this case, less than $500,000 in revenue. Same river basin here down near the southernmost part of your great state of Alabama. Same water source. This is in reference to how you're regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So these are systems that are regulated as groundwater systems. Same rate structure, in this case decreasing block rate structures. We also have a fictitious example utility for affordability concerns. So you can see for their water bills, almost 2.5% their customers are paying. We also, I haven't shown you yet the characteristics tab, which shows you the median household income for the state of Alabama as a whole. And this poor utility, they are less than half of that, and with a much higher poverty rate too. You can see the number of accounts, the population served, the operating revenue, what county they're located in, and if they have outside rates, what is the ratio of that to the inside rates at 5,000 gallons per month. And it's twice as much, so it's 100% more here. Another comparison group is similar customer income, and this is less than $25,000 per year. Within 50 miles distance, and the same regional council, in this case the Southeast Alabama Regional Planning and Development Commission planning area. Finally, on the rates comparison tab of the dashboard, what would happen if you raised rates? Well, you're probably not going to raise them radically all at once because of the rate shock that would incur for your customers. But again, just to begin that kind of investigation, that kind of conversation, you can simulate a one-time rate increase of up to 50% here. And when you do, your bill will go up, your revenue will go up, but there's this thing called the law of supply and demand. Generally, more stuff costs, the less people will buy of it. So we have programmed in a simulation of a 3% drop in demand for every 10% increase in price. In reality, in your community, it might work different than that. You probably know better than I do exactly how that might play out. I'll also say that if you go to our website, we have a water and sewer rates model that you can use in a much more sophisticated way to program in rate increases simulated across a period of time, and broken up into how much you change the rates in different blocks if you've got a block rate and that kind of thing. And I think you'd enjoy that tool. Speaking of other tools, we have a links tab here with links to ADAM's website, to the water rates tables and report you saw a little earlier, to the State Drinking Water Revolving Fund page for ADAM, link to other state dashboards that we at the UNC Environmental Finance Center prepared, to the EPA's website, funder of this year's dashboard. If you click on the red button here, it will email me with a question or a comment, so you're welcome to do that. Click on the green button and it will take you to our project website for the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, and you can put in a request for direct technical assistance there, learn more about the project, see our archives from last year with recordings we made of webinars from the past and presentations we've done, and so on. So that's pretty much the basics of how the dashboard works, but I know I've been talking a lot here, and one way to make it make a little more sense and be a little more concrete, I think, is to bring up an actual utility. And Lexi's shaking her. Gosh, you guys are shy. You know, I mean, I grew up in a small town in eastern North Carolina myself, so I was kind of a shy boy growing up, but I've learned to run my mouth a lot, as you can tell. So I'm gonna put up a couple of the utilities that I think are with us today, and again, not trying to put anyone on the spot at all. We're just trying to bring alive what you're seeing here and make as much sense as possible. So I'm trying to get to Huntsville. I've been to Huntsville. I was able to come to Alabama last year to do some energy management workshops. You've got a great airport there in Huntsville, as I recall. And Huntsville is located here in the northern part of the state. You see the little yellow dot. It's got comparatively low bills at about $15 a month for 5,000 gallons of water. They do not have the sewer utility. They're in the bottom 10% of the rates there. They're still doing a pretty good job on affordability. If you go to the characteristics tab, you see, since it is about $5,000 a year higher than the statewide MHI, that helps with the affordability considerations. Not sending a particularly strong pricing signal at all for conservation signal for going from 10 to 11,000 gallons per month of usage. Cost recovery is not bad. Let's go to the financial benchmarks tab. It's above 1, so you're able to pay out of your rates for your basic operations. However, the question that this would raise for me would be, what is your planning looking like for funding long-term future capital improvements? And that would be interesting to know more about what Huntsville's thinking there. I also noticed when I was preparing for today's webinar that I believe the city of Brundage, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, city of Brundage, I think, is on the webinar with us. And that'll help bring out a different kind of distinction here. Brundage does have, I think, both water and sewer services. And if you look at the conservation signal dial, they're, again, sending kind of a not very high conservation signal in the bottom quarter for water at 5,000, going from 10 to 11,000 gallons per month. But at sewer, it's right about the median, so right about the 50% point. So it is, compared to the rest of the utilities, sewer utilities in the state, it's a stronger conservation signal. So that is something that is interesting to notice there. In both cases, on the bill comparison dial, the bills do fall in that dark green area in the middle 50% of the data. Similar to what we're seeing with Huntsville, good news on the cost recovery is your rates are funding, paying for your operations, but not maybe as high as it could be for funding future capital improvements. And little bit of a question about the affordability there, moving up almost into that red zone. That's very understandable with an MHI that is about half that of the state as a whole. So considering that, problem to be dealt with the what the customer base can afford there, it seems you're doing a lot of things right here. Would be interesting to know also about what your capital improvement plans are for the future. And by the way, when I say these things, you're welcome to respond and send in to Lexi and give us a little more context. Next, I'm going to go to Piedmont. We'll just do one or two more examples, and then we'll wrap up for today. But don't leave early, because we've got some more exciting stuff at the end here for you. I promise about that. So here we have the city of Piedmont, or town of Piedmont, whichever it may be. And these folks have an impressively high operating ratio. They've got some good cost recovery going on there from their rates. Rates for water still in the middle 50%. Still for both water and sewer, not very strong conservation signals. Affordability also in pretty good shape. And this despite the fact that the median household income is about $10,000 a year less than that for the state of Alabama as a whole. So I'd say that, again, it looks like you're really doing some things right here, especially in the cost recovery department. Perhaps Piedmont is planning for a new or improved water treatment plant or sewer treatment plant. In any case, I wanted to show that example. And now we have a comment coming in
from
the city of Brundage.
Yes.
Mr. Marler, hope I'm pronouncing that right. The dashboard pretty much confirms what you thought about the rates here in Brundage. I'm glad to hear that. I'll go back to Brundage for just a moment, if I may, because one thing I didn't demonstrate with an actual utility here is, like, let's look at somebody who is more like you than all of them in the state are. So if you look at similar number of accounts, you're still pretty much in the middle 50%, near the bottom there. You look at similar revenue generation. It's interesting. Similar revenue generation, you jump up above the median of that comparison group a little bit there for the bills. If we look at same water source, which of course goes to the cost, doesn't it, of your water, whether it's coming more from groundwater or surface water or purchase system, you drop a little below the median there. So that's also something you can do when you're noodling around with the dashboard after this webinar. And finally, I'm going to go to Cleveland. It's interesting to see there's a Cleveland, not just in Ohio, but in Alabama too. And these folks have rates almost up to the border to the next zone there. So that's going to be what? Around the 75th percentile for water. And they're sending a very strong conservation signal. I think that's a commendable thing to do, given that water is a scarce resource, even in areas of the country like the Southeast, where it's more plentiful for us than it might be in, say, Arizona or California these days with the drought they're facing. So strong conservation signal there being sent for water, also for sewer. However, even with the rates on a somewhat higher than usual side compared to the other examples, still not like way high, but there's perhaps some room for improvement in the cost recovery there too. Looks like you do have some long-term indebtedness, and you're above 1, which is good, but not yet up into that 1.25 range. Days cash on hand, you're above 180 days, which also is very good. And again, you're doing this despite being well below the statewide average of the median household income. So all of these examples, you're all doing some things right. And probably any utility we would bring up here, there would be some area where there might be an issue to look at. And here also, affordability, we can point out, is right around 1.5%, combined right around 3%. So getting to be a little bit of a concern there. I always, when I'm working with people on the dashboard, I invite people to not just look at one dial or just two, but the relationships between all of them, because they can kind of tug in opposite directions. So I think that's all the time we have now for showing the dashboard. We're going to go back to the slide presentation, give you a quick reminder again about the upcoming webinars.
Yes, and you can go to our website there through that link, or on our homepage and click on Alabama to register for the webinars, and we'd love to have you back. And we do have a few more resources for you. We do keep a blog on environmental finance topics. We post to that on a weekly basis, so just once a week, and they're on a variety of topics, but a lot of them do have to do with water and wastewater and watersheds and wetlands and those sorts of relevant topics. And you can sign up for that either through the blog, or we'll give you an opportunity in a moment just to get an alert every time we update it. David also showed you the EFC network website, and I think he did a great job of showing all the resources there, but it's definitely worth checking out. And finally, if you are on Twitter, so are we. That's the best place to go to get the most up-to-date updates about what we're doing, real-time updates about our work. And I think we'll move.
So Lexi and I both want to say thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you also to the Alabama Department of Environmental Management for funding this webinar series, including today's webinar. We love working with Aubrey White and Dennis Harrison and all of the other great people at ADEM. They're terrific resources for those of you who are water systems down there. And do come check out our next webinars on affordability, and then in September on the rates tool, and then on the capital improvement plan tool. Do come to our website and our Twitter page. And Lexi, thank you very much for your help today.
Thanks, David, and thank you all for coming.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.